with the initial change, it's just been, I mean, a frustrating year with injuries, not just to Caitlyn, but obviously to Caitlyn. DB ultimately ends up leaving. And so that, you know, we already talked about how you need time to gel, you need time to build chemistry. So how frustrating has it been that the chemistry is just, it's like start, stop, start, stop.
In a recent interview with Sue Bird, Aliyah Boston made a number of noteworthy remarks regarding Caitlyn Clark. We'll analyze every critical comment, every compliment, and every instance in which she clarified expectations. When Aliyah mentioned the pressure of playing with Caitlyn, what was the first thing that sprung to mind?
It's definitely been a struggle, but I think just at the start of the season too, like, you know, you have your start of the season meetings and you're talking, and for us it was about, listen, like, no matter what happens in the season, it's next woman up and you have to be ready. And I feel like obviously struggling with injuries, and then, you know, you sign people and then they leave, and it's like, listen, like, whoever is next, be ready to play, because it doesn't matter. Like, the games still keep coming. Like, you still have to be ready to compete. And that's why I was so happy, like, when we signed Aaron.
The remarks made by Aliyah Boston seemed sincere and unplanned. They didn't sound like a PR team's polished, media-proof statement. Sue Bird candidly about her experience performing with Caitlyn Clark on her show. And to be honest, that kind of candor has far greater significance than another fabricated headline asserting that everyone is best pals.
It is. Obviously, you never want people to get injured, but the reality is you have to have that mindset, and it gives other people opportunity. And then you hope ultimately you're all better for it when the injured players come back. But I'm curious, specific to Caitlyn being on the floor, off the floor, and I saw you talk on your own podcast about like the spacing and how different it is. But when you're entering a game, like your mental prep, how does it change? Because it's two different systems essentially.
It is. Honestly, like, when C is on the floor, I'm like, listen, be ready to
run. Because Boston is experiencing it firsthand, her insight is so keen. Caitlyn Clark has been heralded as the future of women's basketball, praised as ESPN's newest star, and acknowledged as a major viewer attraction. Whether you're entering a busy arena or reading through your phone, you can't avoid that kind of attention. Every Indiana Fever game benefits from Caitlyn Clark's focus, attentiveness, and high expectations, as Boston has freely acknowledged.
Be ready to get out, be ready, because she's looking. She's looking, going. She wants to play fast, super early in the offense. And like, we do that too as well here, but I think sometimes too now without her, like, we can get into like a little more half-court execution, make the defenses work a little bit harder, first side, second side, third side. And then I think when you have like Kelsey, when Kelsey's playing in transition, get that ball up to her and make her.
I've never seen anybody so.
Let's pause for a moment now. Aliyah Boston isn't a bitter teammate looking for pity or attention. Even before Caitlyn Clark arrived, she was the cornerstone of Indiana, an all-star, and the 2023 Rookie of the Year. However, everything changed when Caitlyn arrived in Indianapolis. Every embarrassing play generated conversation, every missed shot was replayed online, and every win or loss was examined as though it were a playoff series.
So entering year 3 for you, which is this year, as you said, it's a lot of change.
Yes.
You have a coaching change. You have it's a big free agency year for you guys. And really overnight, what that big free agency year was, or big change was expectations change.
Yes.
So you guys went from like this up and coming, where it's like you're getting to know each other, to now it's like, oh, they could win the whole thing.
Here, Boston's integrity truly shines. Sue Bird revealed on her podcast that the team as a whole was impacted by the strain, not only Clark. If Clark is viewed as the team's savior, then she is not solely responsible for the team's problems. Boston and other teammates are likewise burdened by criticism and expectations.
So what was the experience of essentially becoming, like, instead of being the hunter, you're now the hunted?
It's crazy, but I feel like it was definitely expected. Like, I think number one, like, just last year, everyone, like, when they see our name on the schedule, even though the year before we didn't win, like, we won 13 games or whatever it was, and it was like, okay, well, but then you added in Caitlyn, right? And everybody's like, oh, like, they're gonna be this, and this, and now everybody's like, oh, you know what? We're gonna prove you wrong. Like, hell no, like, that's not what it is.
She emphasized that despite the fact that she and Clark had never been partners prior to this season, everyone outside expected them to execute beautifully from the start. Despite not having played together for months, critics seem to think Boston should already be aware of Clark's habits, timing, and court vision, citing Boston when she says that they weren't given enough time to get used to playing with someone new.
everybody's like, yeah, like they got, for us, we always think like you have to approach every season with like, we're winning this whole season. So that was our mindset. And I think when you look at expectations, once again, expectations come from everyone outside. Cause like in our circle, we know exactly what we want to do. We also understand that it's a process. We understand that new faces, new coaches, like different style play for people joining us. It's like people need time to figure it out once again. But when you do figure it out, it's going to be scary. And I feel like that's what it was for us. And that was our approach. And we're still like, listen, we are coming here to win this thing. Like that's what it is. And that's not going to change no matter.
It actually tells it all. Think about this. In the NBA, players, coaches, and analysts frequently stress that developing team chemistry takes time. It took almost an entire season for LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, the Heat's big three, to really click. However, Caitlin Clark's expectations were very different in the WNBA. Fans behaved as though Boston and the rest of the squad had to be performing poorly if they weren't a playoff team right away. That story obviously irritated Boston, but she handled it coolly. She didn't vent or assign blame. She only clarified that the team was still learning and that outside parties weren't allowing them to develop. Given that she is only 23 years old, her level of maturity says a lot about her.
Airy.
Yeah.
I felt like that was like amazing for us because obviously we couldn't predict C being out for this long at least. And so it's like having someone in that runs the point well, can call her own number, I think honestly has been like our biggest blessing. Obviously now with Bibbs, like she's coming in, she's able to stretch the floor. It's like, I think no matter what, everything is for a reason, right? And that's kind of our focus is listen, like whatever happens, but whoever is here in our circle, listen, like we're here to hoop.
Yeah.
And that's how we're going to play. And so I feel like that's just been our approach. Like it hasn't been perfect. There's definitely been injuries here and there.
The conversation then shifted to the evolution of Boston's on-court chemistry with Clark. She acknowledged that the initial months were more difficult than she had expected. She was unprepared for some passes and failed to recognize Clark's intentions in other instances. Social media magnified these incidents, transforming a single error into proof that the Fever couldn't cooperate. Boston did not, however, attempt to downplay these difficulties. Rather, she gave an explanation for why things happened and mentioned that she started to comprehend Clark's timing and decision-making more as the season went on.
She is moving, she's making the right read, and it's like, listen, and she's scoring the ball at a very high level. And so I think, it's a little bit both, like once again, like when she's on the floor, like she's looking to get up, people can be like, listen, I don't need to outlet because I know once we rebound, we're getting it up. But I also think it, once again, it's like puts people on their toes because they're like, whoa, I need to find Kelsey in transition. I need to find Ari now. Like we got to find Sophie and Lexi knocking down threes. Like it's different, but I think everyone is once again finding their own rhythm and that we just did a great job.
She started to notice Caitlin's cadence. Without using any spoken cues, Boston was able to predict passes just observing where Clark was looking. This is how true basketball chemistry develops, through experience and repetition rather than magic. Boston gave a striking illustration. You won't need Clark to signal for the ball or cry out cut once you've spent enough time playing together. All you have to do is observe her body language, such as how she puts her feet or elevates her head. Boston genuinely senses the intensity and purpose of Clark's game during those times. On Sue Bird's podcast, Aliyah Boston talked about the difficulties of playing with Caitlin Clark, describing how the first few months were difficult due to constant observation. She acknowledged that chemistry takes time and that mistakes are unavoidable, particularly since social media magnifies every error. Boston respectfully asked supporters to be patient while praising Clark's exceptional passing and vision in spite of trolls and high expectations. She emphasized how, despite the added strain, Clark's attention benefits the entire Fever group. Boston's tenacity, which enables her to deal with criticism without losing concentration, was shaped by her own difficult background. Overall, she emphasized that success is a team effort rather than just one star's show, striking a mix between love for Clark and candor about his difficulties.